So this is a 2-day rafting course with Andy from Backcountry Scot. I've never done this before, quite looking forward to it.
We need to get across. This is our journey continuing.
I've done canoeing in the past, but not done the combo of, well, not quite bike packing, but bike raft packing and all the logistics of that. Anyway, so I hope you'll join me on this little adventure, well, 2-day adventure, and see how everybody gets on. Before going out on the River Spey today, Andy first introduces us to various information apps, websites and books where we can find out grades of rivers and levels of water in and around Scotland. This will allow us to assess the river conditions before we enter and where we might find hazards along the way.
Bit of information, so it tells you what page in the Whitewater guidebook you'll find information about that section. It also gives you a link, so each of the titles there are a link.
After about 40 minutes of tuition, we proceed to the River Spey.
Oh, Strava.
But that's before Jane and Andy remember to switch on their Strava, as always whatever we do today won't exist.
In the mountain, because no one's been over a lot of it. But I didn't think that you'd been over about 50 million times. Yeah. It's never going to be covered. No. The River Spey is the second longest river in Scotland, and we're going to start to navigate it from Aviemore, where fortunately the water levels are sufficiently high for us to paddle down. We're travelling down river approximately 8 kilometres to Boater Garden. We will navigate several rapids, grade 1 touching 2. Reaching Boater Garden, we will exit the river and travel back home by bike. Due to the low water level, however, Andy needs to take us downstream on some sweet single track. After reaching our point of entry, Andy assesses the situation up. He proceeds to talk about the risks that we may find and how we may start to navigate the river.
Like a pack raft journey. Current's going to be so strong that we're going to get swept into the trees. Not here. Maybe downstream we might find.
Once we've been introduced to the river by Andy, we set about building our boats. Along the way, questions are asked and Andy's always ready there to help.
Slow down.
No, don't slow down. Just position yourself.
Bottom bit. Yes.
Undo this lever and screw it all the way and pull the skewer out.
Which one first? And if I put my wheel, that way I've got a disc and that way I've got that.
This one first.
Once we're ready, rafts built, bikes packed on top, kit mounted, we're ready to enter the water. Good advice is trickle fed throughout the day.
The tempering process, you can kind of bathe your boat with water.
I do baptise you.
Yeah.
The tempering step is necessary to blow in air before the raft enters the water, going soft downstream. It turns out this part of the River Spey is quite tame and very easy to paddle. Before risks present themselves, Andy stops us, has a chat, explains the risks before we meet them downriver.
Water's going to push you and try and force you through the holes, but you don't fit through the holes. So you'd be like glued to the bottom of the colander. Does that make sense? Same sort of thing with that if we end up in the tree.
We get out to have a look at our first grade 1 rapid challenge. Andy explains to us what we need to look at in order to assess what we need to do and how we might navigate. Once we park the rafts in the wind.
The dark glass
ripples because you don't want to end up on that bank there. You have to hug, you see that bank there, you're going to have to hug against those trees, right?
And then we trend left on that glassy tunnel.
Andy shows us his path choice. Okay, my turn. What path will I try to take? I make my first run trying to follow Andy's path. It's subtly more difficult than it looks. I make it through and come in behind Andy. Jane is coming through, must keep paddling.
Great, Jane. Good video.
Both Vida and Jane take an alternative line.
Yeah, just look down to where the current chills out. There's a few more gravel bars.
First grade 1 rapids through safely. Once again the river slows down and we just take it slowly.
Right in front of you there.
Yeah, they're probably hiding. I was like in amongst some reeds.
Note the wind in the trees. This made it quite a challenge to stay straight once you stop paddling. When you try to take a photograph, you just end up in a spin. Practicing eddies was another piece of advice Andy gave us while the water was relatively calm. Not all the rocks were this big to line up behind. And yes, stop paddling, stuck behind the rock. Second set of rapids coming up. Navigating the visible rocks was one thing, spotting the hidden ones was another challenge.
Good.
Slowly does it, where are those hidden rocks? Entering the third set of rough water. Hidden rocks. Now entering the fourth set of rapids. Slowly again, spot the rock shark. We're beginning to realise that paddling a river is easier than a lock.
Nothing like they were yesterday. I think it makes me like...
There's less work as well, isn't it?
Yeah, there's less work, and you can sort of like, you can just like this.
Entering the fifth set of rapids. Now closer to a set of rocks, assessing the situation.
Oh, I'm heading for those rocks!
Jane's grounded. Difficult to see the ropes. Jane rocks free. After that set of rapids, straight into another. Need to ferry across to avoid those rocks. What is Andy's line? Very much safely out the other side. I think we all thoroughly enjoyed that, even though some were a little bit more. But I think it was all grins all round. We safely reached our exit point, Boaty Garden. Pulled out of the water safely, we now need to do the final transformation for the day.
Two options. We can transform here. It's not the nicest place. It's under a road bridge. So we can go up to the gates.
Cool. During the process of packing the rafts, building the bikes, Andy unfortunately broke the rear axle on his bike.
Well, I want to be able to get it out, so.
Can we get home safely? A good man, Andy, when he includes single track on the way home. And yes, Andy's bike made it home. Hope you enjoyed that. I certainly did. It's one of those things I wanted to tick off my bucket list. But what I didn't anticipate was doing that course made a big difference. I was just going to hire a raft and take it as it comes. I'm sure it would have been okay, but picking up those extra tips and bits and bobs, how to navigate the river, how to look at the river, certainly did help and put us a new perspective on how you can travel down a river safely. Now, if you want any more details on Backcountry Scot, then have a look in the description below. And what we're looking forward to with regards to bikepacking and backpacking is being able to navigate paths or routes that would otherwise be a bogfest. Andy quite rightly pointed out, and it seems quite an eye-opener, why travel down a bog-fested path where you can travel the lock, get out at the end and carry on without even getting your feet muddy. Given that experience, we're certainly looking at pack rafts and how we can complement that with our bike packing kit. So keep tuned, you might see us bike pack rafting for real. And of course, keep well, keep safe, and I'll catch up with you guys next time.